Hey guys, another audio video. Today I have just finished up a test, a head-to-head battle test between the Crown 800 CSL amplifier and the Fender SPL9000. They are pretty much in the same area when it comes to power. 450 watts per channel in 4 ohm for this one. This one is 400 watt per channel in 8 ohm if I'm correct. I have not, let me say this off first. I have not tested them on subwoofers. There's a reason for that. My subwoofers are buried in the bottom over there, all the way to the bottom, and my crossover, my active crossover that I use normally for testing, I have at home. I forgot to bring it with me today, so I haven't had the chance of testing them on subwoofers yet. But I have tested them on full range pro audio speakers. I did 3 different pairs of speakers. One was the Electro Voice SH-1502ER, and the other pair was the JBL JRX100. And then I have a pair of, I don't remember the model name on them, but I have a pair of 2-ways 15-inch Yamaha speakers over here. They have been featured before on the channel. So that they are kind of, those speakers are kind of like different in a way, but the Yamaha and the JBLs are pretty similar in a way. 2-way with 15-inch. Hold on, I need to take my jacket off. It's getting warm in here. It's getting warm outside. So much for Christmas and winter. The last few days we have had like 65 to 70 degrees. It's about 62 today, or 63 or something like that. Okay, enough about the weather. Fender versus Crown. Which one played the best, in my opinion, on the 3 different speakers? The Electro Voice speakers are kind of like way different than the Yamaha and the JBLs, so I expected some different results when I switched around. I started with the Yamahas, and both of these amplifiers work great on what you can call full range or tops or satellites or whatever you want to call it. People have different names for them. I call them full range speakers or tops. The Yamaha was the first ones out. The first amplifier I hooked up was the Crown. What I used was, I used my cell phone hooked up to a mixing console, a small one, a Tapco, a 6-channel mixing console, and I used XLR cables from the mixing console to the amplifiers. Well, on this one, on the Crown, I used quarter jacks because this one doesn't have XLR in. It only has quarter jacks in. So, but it's about the same. Both of them were balanced. When I hooked the Crown up to the Yamaha speakers, I have tested the Yamahas before with other different amplifiers. So the Crown was not the best one that I have heard, but not the worst one either. It felt to have way enough power. It felt way powerful enough to drive the Yamaha, no problem there. The sound was typical for pro audio, straightforward, very clinical. Like I said, it felt like it had enough power to deal with them, and it should, because I mean 400 watt in 4 ohms, and the Yamahas are like 2-ways with 15-inch woofer and a horn, so it should have enough power to drive them, and it did. I couldn't go all the way bananas on them because that would have probably stressed the speakers out, so more enough power. When I hooked the JBLs up to the Crown 800 CSL, the sound changed. And now, I mean, I tested the Yamaha against the JBL before, and I think I said back then that the JBL came out as the winner. And with the amplifiers that I used then and the setup that I had compared to now it became even more clear that the JBL has an advantage over the Yamaha. when I hooked the crown up. It seemed like the JBL could take more power, and I could play louder. I could use more power out of the amp to play on the JBL. So once again, very, very good result. I was pleased and satisfied with the sound. No problem amplifier wise. It didn't sound anything nearly like stressed or out of breath or anything like that. So once again, a good result for the crown on the JBL JRX 100. Well, when I hooked them up to the bigger speakers, bigger full range speakers, which is also two ways. It's the SH1502 ER from Electro Voice. Like I said, two ways with a 15-inch but a way bigger horn than both Yamaha and JBL, and also bigger, way bigger cabinet. The internal volume of the cabinets are like 2.5, 3 times bigger. So then things really changed. I got a deeper sound, more what I call fulfilling sound. It was more complete. And that's not the amps, just the amps thing of doing. It's a combination. Bigger speakers, bigger cabinets equals more sound, deeper sound, a fuller sound, and maybe what we can call a more complete sound. The only similarities between the three speakers are that they all are two ways, but they're built on a different kind of like schematic or an idea. The crown really pushed the Electro Voice to a level where I was like, this sounds really good. This is really good. Once again, the amp had no problems. The fan, yes. You can hear the fan, but it doesn't kind of like interfere with the sound in any way, because if you have it on a distance, you can hear it in the background, but the louder you play, the less you hear it. So that was the going for all three pairs. You could hear the fan going in the background, but it wasn't like annoying, because you kind of like got focused on the sound from all three speakers. Let me say, all three speakers and the amp sounded really good. Enough power to all three of them. So the only problem with the crown is you don't have XLR in, you only have quarter jack in. And another thing that I'm not a big fan of on any amp is that the gain controls on the crown is on the back. So I like to have gain controls on the front like the Fender have. So the gain controls are on the back, and they're very tiny, small turning knobs. So I know why they made it small, because it's less chance of accidentally with cables and wiring and all that stuff. And if they're mounted in a flight case or a flight cabinet, there's less chance for cables or something to rub off and change the setting. But that's why I like to have everything on the front. So there are some pros and there are some cons with the crown. I feel that it will work fairly well with subwoofers as well. Maybe not the biggest, most demanding subwoofers, but mid-woofers or mid-bass, probably a perfect combination, because it functions very good with the three speakers that I've tested now. So it really did the job really good. The one that I have here is it's in good working condition, but the cosmetic condition on it is nothing to brag about. The decal on the front is coming off and flaking off a little bit, and there's some scratches on the top. But and one of the wings on the back, as you call it, is kind of like bent, but that can be bent back out. So overall, the Crown CSL series, the 800 model, is a very good amp. I like the amp compared to what I like in like Carver and B52 and Electro Voice amplifiers and some other amplifier brands in Pro Audio that I like. How do this Crown stack up? Well, it's an older model, so it's kind of like a little bit updated. What you get here is pure power and pure hookup. There is no DSP or anything in there. There's no internal crossovers, nothing like that. very pure, um, engineered and made amplifier, and it has the power that I feel that it has. I haven't measured it, but it feels like a good 400 watt amplifier per channel. So it did the job, and I was satisfied with it. Not too heavy compared to other amplifiers. It's up there. It has what I call a normal weight for this type of amplifier. It's a 2D, so it's kind of like a medium slim type thing, kind of thing. So a 2D amplifier are, in my mind, very, very nice, because you can fit several into a flight case or a flight cabinet and have some effects and stuff like that on top of it. And the flight cabinet itself doesn't have to be humongous, even if you use 2 or 3 or 4 amps. And that will, over time, reduce the weight, what you have to take out on the road or in and out or whatever. Even though most of them have casters or wheels, as some people say. So yeah, I definitely approve the Crown 800 CSL. If you use it for pro audio speakers, I have no problem with it. If you are a Cerwin Vega guy, and you want power amps, really powerful power amps to power your Cerwin Vegas, the 800 CSL is a good choice. You can drive most Cerwin Vega speakers to an extreme level with this amp, and I don't think it will sweat a beat. So I recommend the Crown 800 CSL. They are for sale here and there every now and then. In working condition, you have to probably expect to pay about $350 to $500 somewhere. That's what I've seen them. Some maybe $300. This one is in good working condition, but like I said, it has some cosmetic issues. If someone can live with that, I mean, this one is like a $350 amplifier that I can probably put it out for. Now let's go down to the other boy here. This is an amp that I have had for a long time. I haven't really put it to a critical test or any demanding test earlier. When I got it, I had to do some things to it. The knobs was missing on the front, so I had to put some other knobs on it. It's not the original knobs. I cleaned it up, did some stuff to it to make it up nice and clean. And we have an airplane over here. So today was the day that I really pushed it and tested it good for the first time. What I like about the Fender SPL9000 is it has lights on the front. It has status and peak. Status is more like when you're within the limits, you're not clipping or peaking. Peak, it's a weird choice for a word. It's a red dial and it says peak. That is the same as clipping or clip. So why they didn't put clip there, I have no idea. On the back, the difference between these two on the back is quite big. It looks like they put some more money and thought into the Fender because you have several more options. You have the quarter jack inputs, but you also have the XLR inputs, and it is both of them have like adjustments for mono and bridge parallel and stuff like that. The Fender also have ground lift button. The Crown do not have a ground lift. So there's more stuff crammed into this one. Age-wise, maybe they are from the same type of era. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they overlap each other, or if they were on the market at the same time, or if there's any gap between them. But the Fender is absolutely more beefed up when it comes to connections and features and stuff like that. Sound-wise and power-wise, I was surprised. I mean, 400 watt per channel, and the Fender is supposed to be 450 watt per channel. I have not compared them. I have opened both of them. in the past, but I didn't open them now to like compare components and build up and engineering and solutions inside. So I can't really go in detail on that. But the 450 watts per channel in the Fender sounds like 450 watts per channel. I had this maybe judgment that the Fender would be weaker, maybe not live up to its potential or up to its specs. Because if you think about it, Fender do not make these. They have a build company that makes them for them. I have heard several people say several things. I heard they say Sun made them. They said there's a company in England who made the internals. There's so many versions of who made these, but so it's hard to say who really made the Fender amp. But they're not built in-house at Fender. That I can tell you. Crown, they make their own stuff in-house. So when I used the Fender on the same 3 pair of speakers, I was surprised because when I hooked it up to the Yamaha speakers, it sounded about the same as the Crown. No big difference. So I was like, not much difference in sound or in how I heard the power or the transitions between the highs and the mids and all that stuff and how the speaker sounded. There was like no big difference between the Crown and the Fender. And that was a promising start. So when I went from the Yamaha down to the JBLs, where I had a very good result with the Crown compared to the Yamaha down to JBL, it was even bigger and better with the Fender. Maybe not power-wise or how brutal or loud it played, but for some reason, the area between like 500-600 hertz up to about maybe 5,000-6,000, maybe 7,000 was a little bit warmer. It didn't have that clinical, typical cold, hard, harsh pro audio sound. And I mean, these are the same type of speakers I used on the Crown. Was it miles difference or like huge difference? No, but it was these subtle little things that I could hear, and when I listened to it, I was like, this is a little bit more pleasing to my ear. It sounds a little bit better. Had a little bit warmer sound. And so I was like, I played on the JBLs for a while, and what I had to do in the middle of that test was I reconfigured everything and I put the Crown back on just to see, is it my mind that plays tricks with me, or is it really that difference? So when I rehooked up the Crown, the sound in the JBL became more sterile, more cold, more hard in a way. And so like, yeah, there is a difference. There is, in fact, where there was no difference when I played on the Yamaha. So that's what kind of surprised me. So when I disconnected the Crown again and hooked up the Fender again, I was like, that just confirmed what I had heard the first time, that the sound from that Fender was a little bit, I won't call it dull or round, it's just a little bit warmer. A little bit warmer. Some people will kind of like dull or round, but I won't say dull because it had crispness, it had punch, it had definition, but it sounded warmer, especially when it comes to voices. And I tried some male voices and some female voices, CDs that are very focused on that, and it just confirmed it that the Fender was a little bit warmer, and I like warm sound. So then I got really excited because when I was then going to hook them up to the Electro Voice SH-1502ER, which is a bigger speaker, bigger cabinet, and when I used the Crown, it was a huge difference with those speakers and the two others that I had already tested. So now I was really amped up to find out how the Fender sounded on them. And it even took the difference further. Not power-wise, they are about identical when it comes to power, okay? They both delivers the sound levels and the punch and the kick, and they both sounds like they have a lot of reserve and headroom and have enough power internally to just go on and go on. But again, the sound was like warmer. It felt more complete than when I used the Crown. And I was like, okay, I did this on the JBL speakers. Now I'm going to test it on the Electro Voice ones. So after playing with the Fender on the Electro Voice for about 10-15 minutes, I disconnected the Fender, I hooked up the Crown to the Electro Voice again, and it just confirmed that yes, there is a difference. So it's kind of like, what type of sound do you prefer? I feel that power-wise, I can go with both. I can live with both. I can use both. When it comes to definition, they're both good. They're both they have a very good separation of frequency ranges and stuff. So when you hear guitars and drums, it doesn't become a mush. It's very detailed, good sounding amps, both of them. But the Fender sounded more inviting to me. My ears was like, I like the Fender sound. Not based on, like I said, has nothing to do with power, has nothing to do with kick or crispness or anything like that. The Fender is just basically a warmer sounding amp, and that pleases my ears better. How and the fact that you have the controls on the front makes it easy to go and adjust things. And I use the ground lift because I always do. I don't know, it's just a preference that I use. So I was very pleased with both. And when I was like going to sit down and think about making a video about this, are people gonna believe this? Because it's really like, is it that big of a difference? The only drawback that I can see with the Fender, it's a 3-unit high, so it takes more space in a flight case or a flight cabinet. It is not as deep. The Crown is deeper than the Fender, with about almost 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches. Like I said, the only drawback with the Fender is it weighs more. It is way heavier than the Crown. I mean, there must be like at least 10 pounds difference, or somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds difference, because it feels like when you lift it, it is heavier. So that can be a drawback for many. But if you use it as a stationary amp where you don't move it around, that doesn't matter. It's just the 1 time or 2 times when you have to move it or something. The biggest drawback and the biggest downfall with the Fender was, and this maybe is because they're both used, so you know, wear and tear and things happens and stuff like that. But as 2 used ones, maybe when it was new, maybe there was not big problem back then, but the fan in this Fender is a good 3 dB louder than the Crown. That's my, maybe 2 to 3 dB. It's way louder. It had some noises. Maybe I can go in and lube it up, because it sounded like it needs to be lubed to spin more freely and doesn't make those mechanical noises, because there wasn't only like air noise or stuff like that. It was a little bit of mechanical noise from it. So maybe that can be fixed with some lubrication. It sounded almost like it. So I'm going to try and do that and see if that helps. And if it helps, well, then the drawback is gone. But in my test now, yeah, the fan in the Fender was way louder than in the Crown. They both have intakes and from what is called front to back fan solutions. The Crown also have ventilation on the sides. So well, the fan goes from front to side on the Crown, and there's front to back on the Fender. It doesn't mean that it sucks air in. It's more like, okay, you have air out on the back. It kind of, it seems like it's configured. Yeah, it's configured to draw the warm air out of the amp on the back. And they use a passive one on the front to get some cooler air to cool off certain parts and components in there. The Crown has a big ventilation on the front, the same as this one. So, yeah. So, at the end of the day, who would I pick? I think I have to test them with some other type of speakers. And I think I have to test subwoofers on them. And when I say other type of speakers, maybe some pro audio speakers that are Dual 15 or Dual 18, or maybe even my Vega V35X that I have, which is a 3-way speaker with 18-inch woofer. That could probably be cool. But if I want to test it on some Vega hi-fi speakers and see how it sounds, but if it can, well, it's hard to say. I like them both, okay? Power-wise, I like them both. But if it came down to now, let's say I could buy one here right now. Well, they're both mine, but if I could buy one right now, right here, and go walk out the door and take it home and hook it up, what type of speakers do I have at home? That would probably be my first thought. Do I have some speakers that are very, very cold sounding or straightforward clinical sounding, or do I have speakers that sound warm? It would depend, but I think that I would probably go with the Fender. But then again, that's before I have tested them on any other speakers or any other subwoofers or in any setup, because a lot of these amps, you have to test them in a complete setup where you have full range speakers, subwoofers, multiple amps, mixing console, and crossovers. Maybe you use some compressors and limiters, DSPs, whatever you use. So I would have to hear both of them in a complete setup, because right now in this head-to-head test with 3 different types of speakers, where all of them are pro audio speakers, and pro audio speakers are normally more clinical and cold sounding and harsher sounding than hi-fi speakers. So if I was going to use any of these on any of my Vegas, I would probably have to test them both and see which one sounds the best on those type of speakers. But right now, if I had to make a choice and take one out the door and go home, it would be the Fender. Even though I like the Crown too. But if I had to pick one, then I'll probably go with the Fender today, just because it's a little bit more convenient, and I like the warmer sound. Like I said, they both are very powerful. They can drive speakers easily, but I like the fact that I have the controls on the front, more connections on the back, ground lift, and you know, XLRs, quarter jacks. I like that. And another thing is, I like the way the speaker terminals are on the Fender compared to the Crown. What do I mean by that? Well, they're banana plugs. They are like the screw terminals. You can use bare wires if you want to, and then banana plugs. On the Crown, you have 2. So, like, you have red and black, and red and black, and they're like this. And they're sitting beside each other like this. Red on the top, black on the bottom, red on the top, black on the bottom. And they're sitting like this. On the Fender, you have them placed differently, because what you have there is you have 4 sitting like this instead of like this. So there's 4, there's black, red, I think. No, it's black, red, black. So they're sitting like this. It's easier if you don't use banana plugs, if you use bare wire, it's easier to put the wire in and tighten them than when you have, you know, like this, and you have to like under there, and it depends on where the hole is in that little thing with they have drilled the hole. But yeah, I like the layout of the speakers when they're horizontally made or set up instead of vertically. So this one has vertical speaker terminals, this one has horizontal speaker terminals. I like that better. And the Fender looks better. It's a better looking amp, okay? Not only because both of them have some cosmetic issues, but the crown has more. But let's say the crown was in very nice cosmetic condition, I like the Fender better. And the fact that you have dedicated handles to grip it with and carry it. The crown doesn't. You have to grip it by the ears, the flight case ears. But what, and the thing with, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. You have the handles on the Fender here, and on the outside you have the ears and the holes. So you don't have to use those to lift it or maneuver it in and out. So let's say you have this one in a flight case, and you screw it in. You have to loosen the screws and then have to kind of like wiggle it out and get a grip on it, and it's kind of hard sometimes because they weigh a lot. If you have the Fender in, you can just loosen the screws, grab the handles, and pull it out. Way easier. So there's a few things with the Fender that speaks to me more than the crown. But at the end of the day, they're both awesome. I recommend them both. They both have plenty of power. So that was it, guys. Until next time, take care.